guy. And
let me just ask you about the campaign the other night. He said that he would do more than waterboarding. Any idea? What does that mean? Since the rest of us don't know him, what would he do that's more than waterboarding?
Yeah, well, listen, you see these terrorists that are flying planes into buildings, right? You see our cities getting shot up in California. You see Paris getting shot up. And then somebody complains when, terrorists gets waterboarded, which, quite frankly, is no different than what happens on college campuses and frat houses every day. And, the man would keep this country safe. There's no question about it. He's got amazing backbone. He's a tough guy. He's sick of the nonsense, and he wants to protect this country. And that's why he's doing this. I mean, he's sick of seeing what's happening to this country, whether it be on trade, whether it be $19 trillion worth of national debt, whether it be, with the terrorists coming in and trying to infiltrate our country.
Has he paid federal income taxes over the last 18 years, yes or no?
Of course, yes, absolutely. My father pays a tremendous amount of tax. We as a company pay a tremendous amount of tax. We as a company also hire a tremendous amount of people, which leads to people being able to provide for their families, people being able to take care of their families, people being able to educate their children. If you look at Hillary, on the other hand, she has never signed the front of a check once. She's never balanced a budget.
So if we ever see your father's income taxes, it will show that he has paid federal income taxes.
There's no question about it. We pay tremendous taxes as a
Will
company.
We see it?
Well, listen, when the audit is over, my father will release it.
Have you seen his tax returns?
And quite frankly, when is she going to release the hundreds of speeches that she gave to special interests? When is she going to release the hundreds of speeches that she gave to Wall Street? Where are those speeches? Why won't she release them? When is she going to release the 33,000 emails?
Have you seen his federal income taxes?
That she deleted after, quite frankly, lying to the Department of Justice, lying to the FBI, and also lying to Congress?
Eric, I'm pretty impressed actually because you haven't been you haven't been in politics that long, and you're doing the pivot quite well. If you can just put a button on this. Have you seen your father's income taxes?
Yeah, I don't study our tax returns. That's why you have.
But have you seen them?
Of course, you see tax returns.
No, have you seen your father's tax returns?
I'm answering the question. Of course, I've seen my father's tax returns.
Paid federal taxes.
My father pays a tremendous amount of tax. As a company, we pay a tremendous amount of tax, and it goes so far beyond federal income taxes. How about real estate taxes? How about employment taxes? How about sales taxes? How about every other type of tax that goes into that? We pay a tremendous amount of tax as a company. That is very, very, very different than Hillary Clinton, who's lived off the government for the last 40 years.
John King has a question, but very quickly, why not release the income tax returns that are no longer under audit?
Listen, my father said when the audits are over, he will release the taxes. My father's also said, hey, listen, Hillary Clinton, why don't you release the 33,000 emails you deleted, and why don't you release your speech transcripts, and when you do, I'll release my tax returns. And this is a whole distraction.
Because 2002 to 2008 are no longer under audit.
I don't know if that's true.
That's what the attorneys, Morgan Lewis, the law firm for Donald Trump,
frankly,
has said that only
you know something.
Well, they released a public letter, Morgan Lewis. That's a major New York
why don't you look at the actual financial disclosures, the hundreds of pages he put out? My father has an amazing company, and he's built an amazing company. We have some of the best hotels in the world. We have some of the best real estate buildings in the world, some of the best and biggest golf courses in the world. Hey, you know so many of the projects. You've seen them be built over, the last decade or 2 decades. He has an amazing company. He's built a tremendous company. He's employed thousands and thousands of people, and that's very, very different than somebody who's lived their entire existence profiting off of the government. The one question I'd have for you guys is, Hillary went from being dead broke when she left the White House, Hillary and Bill, to being worth $250 million. And the question I have for the three of you is, what product has she ever sold? What is she selling that she went from nothing to $250 million in a 15-year period of time? And we all know the answer.
We don't answer for Hillary Clinton. The Clinton campaign does. But I urge you to show up at your father's debate practice because you do have a skill set here. But frankly, I think a lot of people think he could have, if he had done some of this.
I like this 3-on-1. At least we're having a little fun tonight, right?
So you're sitting in the front row for the debate. They're here with the Pence family to represent your dad and to represent the campaign when Tim Kaine was not just prosecuting your father, in trying to make his case about your father, saying your father would have a conflict of interest as president, or at least he might until we see the taxes. Your name came up, and your brother's. Let's listen.
The Trump Organization is an octopus-like organization with tentacles all over the world, whose conflict of interest could only be known if Donald Trump would release his tax returns. He's refused to do it. His sons have said that the organization has a lot of business dealings in Russia. And remember, the Trump Organization is not a nonprofit. It's putting money into Donald Trump's pockets and into the pockets of his children, whereas the Clinton Foundation is a nonprofit, and no Clinton family member draws any salary.
I want you to respond, and if you can, please, be as specific as you can about the companies in Russia, and specifically to the point, Russian banks or any Russian investors. Do you owe money to people in Russia?
It's such a nonsense soundbite. I listened to this nonsense about tentacles. You know, we built an amazing company. America should be proud of people who build great companies. That's what America's all about. It's about building, and it's about success, and it's about jobs, and it's about creating the American dream, right? Henry Ford, and I mean, that's what America is about. We should be proud of that. So talk about tentacles all over the world. We have no assets in Russia. That was a nonsense statement.
Any debts?
We have no assets in Russia. We have no debt in Russia. I haven't been to Russia in, 6, 7 years off the top of my head? 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? I mean, it's nonsense. I think we held Miss Universe in Russia one year. I think that's the extent of our business dealing there. So we have no hotels. We have no golf assets. We have no residential buildings. We don't have properties in Russia. So to come out here, and I think that's what the American people are fed up with. It's these sound bites. It's these lies. It's the disingenuous nature of it. It's referring to a great company that employs thousands of hardworking Americans as a company that's nefarious, that has tentacles all over the place.
Do you understand the power, though, if your father did release his taxes and laid them out there and say, to your point, here's the papers, they're lying. They're making this up. It doesn't exist. So why wouldn't he do it?
Tax return wouldn't show so many of those things anyway. I mean, that's the interesting
thing. They're
thing.
trying to make the point that there are loans.
If you want to know if we have assets in Russia, go look to see if our name's on a building. Go look to see if we own any property there. We're a real estate company. We're a bricks and mortar company. Go see if we have anything in Russia. The reality is we don't. I mean, we just don't. But it doesn't matter. Look at the Clinton Foundation just for a second, right? The U.S. government sold 20% of the uranium stockpile, the material used to make nuclear weapons, to Russia. 2 weeks later, the Clinton Foundation gets...
Let's game this out. If Obama were to sue Trump, a public figure, then Obama's burden of proof would be actual malice, meaning he would have to show knowledge of falsity or reckless disregard for the truth. In other words, it would be reckless for President Trump to say that President Obama committed a crime if President Trump knew that to be false or that he was reckless in making the assertion. Now, of course, truth would be a defense for President Trump. So what evidence or witnesses might Trump present on his own behalf to establish truth? Not Devin Nunes, the Republican chair of the House Intel Committee, who this week said he doesn't think there was an actual tap of Trump Tower, nor James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence, who said no FISA warrant was issued on his watch for such a wiretap. FBI Director James Comey will testify on Capitol Hill come Monday. We already know that he was reportedly so upset at President Trump's claim that he wanted the Justice Department to refute it. And Trump can't count on the Brits, whose Prime Minister Theresa May had a spokesperson issue a statement saying the claim that their intel aided Obama in tapping Trump was, quote, ridiculous. Now, on Thursday, Sean Spicer spent 9 minutes quoting a long list of mostly conservative news sources close to him. But none of that is coming into evidence in our hypothetical. It's all hearsay. In fact, it's unreliable, double or triple hearsay at best. Many relied on anonymous sources of the very kind that President Trump has been railing against. Trump relied on Andrew Napolitano at Fox, who had no firsthand information of GCHQ, the equivalent of our NSA, having spied on Trump at the behest of Obama. Fox News itself said it could not substantiate Judge Napolitano's commentary. And speaking of the former president, we know from the statement issued by Obama's spokesperson that he claims to have never ordered the surveillance of a U.S. citizen. So, what's the verdict? The verdict is that President Obama appears to have a very strong claim for libel. He can establish every element of the tort. So what are President Obama's potential damages? Conceivably, he's entitled to punitive damages. Think about that for a minute. Punitive damages are damages designed to hurt, to punish, to deter. But of course, it all depends on the composition of the jury. Because to the 46% that got Trump elected, this is just noise. So what's going to happen next with President Trump's ongoing battle with the intel community? Joining me now, the former director of the CIA and NSA, General Michael Hayden. His memoir, Playing to the Edge, American Intelligence in the Age of Terror, is now in paperback. General, GCHQ is the British equivalent of the NSA that you ran here in the United States. Is it conceivable to you that the British equivalent of the NSA would get a telephone call from an American president who says, please tap the phones or the office space of someone running for president, and that they would cooperate?
Michael, I'm sorry. I'm trying to suppress a laugh here. That is so far from reality, so far from the relationship we have within the Five Eyes community. Look, we're really close. It is an integrated operation, but one absolute rule is that no one can ask a partner to do that which is illegal for himself or that which is illegal for the partner. And that's never been done in the Five Eyes Alliance.
Has the NSA, to your knowledge, I have to ask this just to close the loop, ever been asked in a similar type of circumstance by one of our allies, will you please eavesdrop on someone seeking the highest office in our land?
Michael, that's way up there in terms of seriousness. I'm telling you, we can't do anything for an ally that the ally itself isn't allowed to do. And so, no, you can't export or offshore these requirements because your law prevents you from doing them. I mean, look, this is done by the rule of law. I get it that it's espionage, it's secret, it gets... If they ever got wind of this, my God, it would be a nuclear detonation.
Where is it going, and what concerns General Michael Hayden the most?
Yeah, so number one, because the White House is sticking to this story, in about, what, Michael, a 15-minute period yesterday, we embarrassed one and angered another of our most important allies in the world. So, core question, where is this going? I found that interview with the president and Tucker Carlson quite interesting. Some folks said that he was doubling down on his claim. Actually, I don't think so. I think he was picking up his chips and going to another table. He was backing away from the literal accusation that President Obama had done, which you've reported on, ordered the wiretapping of Trump in Trump Tower. I think where this is going, Michael, and I think this is the lifeline that I think the administration is hoping they can grab onto, is something that we call incidental collection. And it may take a minute, but I can explain to you and your viewers how this might work if you like. So, if we're up against a legitimate foreign intelligence target, and let me just, for purposes of explanation, say we're targeting, and you'd want us to do this, a Russian oligarch who's involved in money laundering, or how about sanctions busting, all right? And so we're on that target. And this is, by the way, Michael, this happens fairly routinely. If that target now gets involved in a communication to, from, or even about a U.S. person, okay, we're still allowed to continue to cover the target. We just have to protect the U.S. person privacy. We do what's called minimize the information. So we might say this Russian oligarch in an extended conversation with a named U.S. person, so on and so forth, said this. And we keep the U.S. identity minimized, unavailable to our customers. Unless, of course, Michael, the named U.S. identity is critical to the intelligence. Let's say, for example, that the oligarch was actually arranging an illegal transfer of funds, in which case we would unmask the identity so that we'd have a full picture of the intelligence. Now, keep in mind, we're just targeting the foreigner. This is called incidental collection. And the unmasking of the U.S. identity isn't Trump, isn't Bush. It goes back 40 years, these procedures, to the reforms in the American intelligence community in the 1960s.